Like, follow, and share, like coming you heard. We dare pulses of the poor, and why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Like Coming Ya Heard. I'm Steve Marshall.
And I'm Beth Fulmer.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some stuff that hits really close to home for us here in Lycoming County. We're talking about access to your personal information and how the heck that's even supposed to be protected.
Yeah.
Imagine this for a second, okay? A system where law enforcement can just pull up your driver's license photo, your vehicle registration, your criminal history, all that juicy stuff, and it's all just a few clicks away.
Well, you're describing JNET, right? The Pennsylvania Justice Network pulls info from a ton of different sources like PennDOT, the state police, the courts, even over 100 county probation and prison systems.
And this is all supposed to help law enforcement do their job better, right?
Right. The goal is to make sharing info way easier so these different agencies can all work together smoothly and, yeah, potentially save lives in emergencies too. But as we saw with this whole Eric Derr case, it can also backfire.
Oh, yeah. For sure. The former Williamsport police officer ended up being found guilty of using JNET to look up info on women he'd met and not for any police work either.
Mm-hmm.
So how does the law even try to stop this kind of thing from happening?
Okay, so that's where CHRIA comes in. That's the Criminal History Record Information Act. Basically, it's a Pennsylvania law that's designed to protect the privacy and security of all that personal information that criminal justice agencies have.
So CHRIA is like the safety net, making sure this info is only used for the right reasons.
No.
But it obviously didn't stop Derr. What exactly did he do that was so bad?
So Derr had what they call criminal history access, which is the highest level of access you can have in JNET. And he used it to run checks on women he'd met, looking up their birthdays, their driver's license photos, all sorts of stuff, and none of it was for legitimate police work.
And this wasn't like a one-time thing, right?
Nope, not at all. The evidence from the trial showed he was doing this over and over. And get this testimony from other officers, including an intern who worked with him, was really bad. They said Derr would even look up women on JNET while he was on duty and ask the intern what he thought of how they looked.
Yeah, seriously. What kind of charges was he facing for all of this?
Well, at first they really went after him with some serious charges. Unsworn falsification to authorities, tampering with public records, obstruction of the administration of law, and a bunch of counts of unlawful use of a computer. Each one of those is a big deal because misusing that kind of information is taken seriously.
So they threw a book at him.
In the beginning, yeah, he was found guilty on 28 counts of unlawful use of a computer, which is a third-degree felony. But then the judge actually dismissed those charges because of a technicality. He said that Derr technically didn't go beyond what he was allowed to access on JNET, even though he definitely broke the rules of how it's supposed to be used, and went against the whole point of CHRIA.
Hold on. So even though he was using the system for personal reasons, it wasn't technically going too far. That just doesn't seem right.
The Commonwealth thought so too, and they appealed that decision. The Superior Court actually agreed with them. They reversed the dismissal and sent those 28 felony charges back to the lower court.
Wow. So that was a big win for the Commonwealth and a sign that they're serious about holding police officers accountable.
Totally. It's a good step towards getting that public trust back. But the story doesn't end there. Derr is actually appealing the Superior Court's decision to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court.
Oh boy. Here we go again. So what could happen with this appeal?
Well, it could go a bunch of different ways. It could get thrown out completely and the lower court's decision would stand. It could get upheld and Derr would have to face those felony charges. Or, and this is where things get interesting, Derr could maybe turn state's evidence.
You're saying he could turn into Lycoming County's own P. Diddy and snitch on other officers to save himself.
Hey, it's possible if he's got info about other people using JNET the wrong way, or even proof that the Williamsport Bureau of Police has a culture of looking the other way when it comes to this stuff, he might try to make a deal.
Now that would really shake things up. What would that even mean for the community?
Well, if it turns out that there's a lot of JNET misuse happening inside our own police department, it would be a huge hit to people's trust. It makes you wonder, how can we be sure that these systems that are supposed to be keeping us safe aren't being used against us?
Okay, things are getting serious now.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into that, I think we need to break down exactly how JNET works and who can see what information. After all, this is about our own personal data right here in Lycoming County.
Absolutely. Understanding the different levels of access in JNET is super important for figuring out how it could be misused and why CHRIA is so important in the first place.
All right, let's dive into those details. You said there are different access levels. Can you walk us through them?
Sure, so access to JNET depends on what your job is and how much you need the information. The most sensitive level is criminal history access, which is reserved for people like detectives and prosecutors who need complete criminal history records to do their jobs.
Gotcha. That makes sense. What about people who don't need all those details but still need some info from JNET?
They'd have criminal justice access. This level lets them see a lot of criminal justice information, like whether someone's got an outstanding warrant, but it doesn't include detailed criminal histories.
So it's like having limited access, but there's still a chance for misuse if someone's not careful. And what about people who only need basic information, like a driver's license photo?
That falls under non-criminal justice access. This level is used for public information, and they can't see any criminal history records.
So we have these different levels of access to try and protect this information. But Derr still found a way to exploit the system. This really shows why it's important for us as citizens to understand how JNET works and what our rights are.
I completely agree. This Eric Derr case is a huge wake-up call for all of us in Lycoming County. We need to stay informed and make sure that the systems that are meant to protect us are actually used the right way.
This has been super informative, but I know we've got a lot more to discuss. Stay tuned, everybody, because we're going to keep digging into this complex issue. We'll be right back after a quick message.
So welcome back to our deep dive into JNET and what the Eric Derr case means for all of us here in Lycoming County. You know, after hearing all this stuff about Derr misusing the system, I bet some folks might be feeling a little uneasy.
Yeah, I get that. It's not exactly a comfortable thought knowing someone could be poking around in your information without you even knowing or giving them the okay. So what can we do as regular citizens to protect ourselves?
Well, first of all, CHRIA actually gives you the right to see and check your own criminal history record information. If you're worried that something's not right or that someone's been accessing it without permission, you can actually ask for a copy of your record from the Pennsylvania State Police.
Kind of like checking your credit report, right? You want to make sure everything's accurate and that there's no funny business going on. And speaking of funny business, what happens if you think someone's misusing JNET?
That's where that whole see something, say something thing comes in. CHRIA has things like audits and penalties to keep things in check, but it also relies on people speaking up if they see something fishy going on. So if you think something's wrong, you've got to report it.
I can see how some people might be hesitant to do that, though. Who do you even report it to?
You've got a few options. You can contact the Pennsylvania State Police, the Attorney General's office, or even your local district attorney's office.
Good to know. But reporting is just one part of it. How can we stay informed about changes to policies or laws that could affect our privacy?
That's why it's so important to stay connected with your elected officials. Go to public meetings, tell them what you're concerned about, and hold them accountable. When people know their rights and how these systems work, we're all better equipped to prevent abuse.
So it's about being proactive
Yeah.
and not just waiting for things to go wrong before we take action. It's about demanding transparency and making sure our officials are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. And that proactive approach should apply to all law enforcement agencies, too. We should be asking those tough questions, like, are there clear rules about who can access this data and how long it's kept? Are officers getting the right training about CHRIA and the ethical side of looking at sensitive information?
It's easy to feel powerless in these situations, but you're right. It's about taking back our power as citizens and making sure these systems work for us, not against us.
And we can't forget about the role of the media in all this. Investigative journalism is crucial for holding powerful institutions accountable. The more we shine a light on potential wrongdoing, the more we can push for change.
The Sun Gazette's coverage of the Eric Derr case has been really important in bringing this whole thing to light. It shows how important a free and independent press is for a healthy democracy.
Absolutely. Informed citizens, a watchful media, and a strong legal framework like CHRIA are all essential for protecting our privacy. But let's not forget about that potential bombshell we mentioned earlier, Derr's appeal, and the possibility of him turning state's evidence.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's crazy to think that Derr could spill the beans on other officers who might have been misusing JNET too. What kind of impact could that have?
Well, the consequences could be huge. It could expose a culture of looking the other way, or even worse, a whole system of abuse within the Williamsport Bureau of Police. Just think, if Derr reveals that other officers were doing similar things, it would really shatter people's trust in our law enforcement.
So Derr's appeal, while not great for him personally, could actually be a turning point for the whole community. It could force us to face some hard truths about how power is used and abused.
You got it. It's about demanding better from the people who are supposed to be protecting us. It's about making sure that power, especially when it comes to accessing our personal information, is used responsibly and ethically. We all have a part to play in this.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation, but I know there's still a lot to unpack here. We're going to dig even deeper into what this all means for the future of law enforcement and public trust in Lycoming County after this short break. We're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into JNET, the Eric Derr case, and what it all means for us here in Lycoming County. You know, before the break, we were talking about Derr's appeal and him maybe spilling the beans about other officers misusing the system.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, and one that could have a big impact. But even if Derr doesn't say anything, this case has already shown us that these powerful systems meant to keep us safe can be abused.
That's true. It's made us realize that this can happen. So moving forward, what can we do to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
We need to be proactive about making these systems stronger. One good place to start would be to have stricter audits of how JNET is being used across all law enforcement agencies.
So regular checks to make sure everyone's following the rules make sense. But audits only catch problems after they've already happened. What about stopping the misuse before it even starts?
That's where training comes in. We need thorough and ongoing training for every officer who can access JNET. And it can't just be about the technical stuff.
You're talking about the ethical side of things, the legal consequences, the whole shebang.
Exactly. Officers need to understand that accessing this information is a big responsibility. It's about respecting people's privacy and only using this powerful tool when it's absolutely necessary for legitimate police work.
It always comes back to accountability, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We have to hold our law enforcement agencies to a higher standard.
And that accountability has to start from the top. We need leaders who are all about transparency, who encourage people to speak up if they see something wrong, and who hold officers responsible for any bad behavior.
No more sweeping things under the rug.
Right.
We need a system where everyone is held to the same standard no matter what their badge says. But accountability within the system is just one part of it, right?
You got it. We also need strong oversight from outside the system. Think about things like independent audits conducted by agencies that aren't part of the police department, citizen review boards that can look into complaints, and maybe even tougher punishments for people who abuse their access.
So a multi-layered approach that combines internal accountability with external pressure. And we can't forget about the role we all play as citizens.
Exactly. We can't just sit back and expect other people to fix this. We need to stay informed about our rights, talk to our elected officials, and demand transparency from our law enforcement agencies. If we see something that doesn't seem right, we have to say something.
It's about being aware, asking the tough questions, and making sure those in power know that we're watching. This isn't just about one bad apple. It's about making sure the whole system is working to protect us, not against us.
That's a great way to put it. The Eric Derr case might be a blemish on our community, but it's also a wake-up call. It's a chance for us to learn from our mistakes, make our safeguards stronger, and build a system that truly serves and protects everyone in Lycoming County.
That's a powerful message to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into a really complex and important issue. Remember, folks, knowledge is power, and by working together, we can make sure that the systems meant to keep us safe are used the right way. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay vigilant, Lycoming County.
Like, follow, and share, Lycoming you heard. We dare pulses of the poor, and why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.